How's it going, guys? Matt with MotoWorx here, and in the last video we got the engine out of the Thundercat. In this video we are going to actually be taking the engine apart. In order to do that, we have to get this bike off the stand and we have to get this engine up on a motorcycle stand. That should be pretty easy to do. Ta-da! Alrighty, so what we are going to be doing today is we're going to be taking this engine apart and we're going to be doing what's called splitting the cases. And what that means is this engine has not only the piston, connecting rods, and crank in it, like a normal car engine, it also has the entire transmission assembly, so the clutch and everything that goes with the transmission in this bike is inside the cases on this bike. Now they call them cases. This portion here is the top half of the case, or the top case, and this portion down here is the bottom case. And what you have to do is you have to separate the top and the bottom case, because sandwiched between the top and the bottom case is the transmission on this motorcycle. This isn't the old way of putting a transmission in a motorcycle engine. A lot of newer bikes have what's called cassette style gearing, where all you have to do on those newer style bikes is pull the clutch cover off and remove a couple of bolts, a couple of fasteners, and the actual entire clutch comes out as one unit, is what they call cassette style. And you can change those transmissions with the engine still in the bike. But on these older ones, you do have to take it apart. You do have to separate these cases. And that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Now, just like I said in the first video, you want to make sure that you have a place to put everything before you start tearing this engine apart, because you're going to have a big pile of screws, covers, you name it. There's going to be parts galore. You're going to see at the end of this video that there's going to be a ton of parts that we need to not only know where they go, but we also need to keep the stuff organized so that it goes back together in a trouble-free manner. So, without further ado, we're going to get started on this. Okay guys, now as with any job that you're going to be taking an engine completely apart, you want to make sure that you first clean everything really well. So that's what we're going to do now. Just give this a good old-fashioned scrub down and make sure that no dirt gets into the engine when we take this apart. Alrighty, so we have the engine ready to separate the case halves. Now I'm not sure if I have to take off the water pump here. I don't think I do, but I am ready to separate this. It's just going to lift up when I separate this, but I just have to be cautious as I'm lifting this up, because in here, this portion of the case half, this lower portion here, has the bearings for the crankshaft in it. So when I lift this up, there is a potential that those bearings could fall down into the engine. There's also a potential that other items could fall down into the engine. So I just have to be careful, particularly on those bearings, because they go in a specific place in this case half. And if they get mixed up, then I'll have to get all new bearings, and that can get expensive. Alright guys, just like I said, this is going to explode pretty quickly. I have the covers all off. They're somewhat organized with what goes where, and I'll kind of go over it into detail here. This is what I got off of the top half of the engine here. This is what I got off the bottom half of the engine on this side for these bolts. I did take a picture of all of these fasteners and where they were located in the engine in terms of these little brackets here, so that I get that stuff on there correctly when I put it back together. Now there are certain things. Now some people take these bolts and put them in cardboard and label exactly where they came off the engine, but if you look, every bolt is a different length almost. So there's only going to be one part on the engine that bolt will fit into. So you don't necessarily have to label them. The only thing you have to be weary of are things like copper washers, because they block off oil passages so that these bolts, so that it doesn't leak oil when you put it back together. So you have to be mindful of where the bolts with the copper washers went, as well as where the bolts with these brackets went. Now with these covers here, the best thing you can do is just leave the bolts and brackets inside the cover, just like I've done here, and then all I'll have to do is just put these in a box with all the fasteners in there. But again, if it ends up that I lose these or they fall out, somebody knocks the box over, more than likely me, I'll just have to, before I put this away, take a picture of everything and then put the stuff in the box. But all these covers are off. Like I said, this is ready to come off. That's what we're going to do now. Well, that scared the crap out of me. It's just a can of cleaner. Alright guys, so it is the moment of truth. So we're just going to tap lightly on this case, various different spots, see if it wants to come apart. Now, we don't want to be overly aggressive. We do want to tap and see if this engine is indeed ready to come apart. Which it's a little tight, so tap back here a little more. And look, make sure that I got all the bolts that could be potentially holding this together. Sounds like it wants to come apart. What's happening now? Somebody's probably saying, "You forgot to take off Y." And I see what Y is right now. I gotta take off this plate that holds this on. That's what's holding me up. Alright, so I was almost ready to take it apart. Take this here plate off. thought for sure that would be it. Like it was going to be just popping off of there. But that was not the case. There'll be a bolt somewhere holding this down because there's some pretty good hits. Don't want to break anything.
2 hours later.
I figured it out, guys. I'm sure you guys were screaming at the video telling me I'm an idiot and I need to remove this last bolt. But if you look behind the oil pump here, there's an arrow pointing to a bolt. And that bolt is holding, is all that's holding this engine together. Actually, let's see, only bolt left. But I have to take off the oil pump first. I don't think I had to take off the clutch, but I took off the clutch and I could see the bolt in there. So I'm going to take this oil pump off and then we're going to give it another shot.
3:28 a.m.
Alright guys, I don't know if you could tell, but it's pretty late and I'm getting a little sleepy, but I just found out some pretty disturbing news on this bike here. This lovely piece of equipment here. Yeah, I have to take the cylinders, I have to take the engine completely apart, meaning I have to take the cylinder head off and I have to take the jug off because there's 2 bolts. If I can show you here. If you look down in here, there are 2 bolts. Let me see if I can point to where they're at. There are 2 bolts in front of where this bolt went. And there's 2 bolts, one on each side, that are holding this case down. Never mind the fact that there's 2 bolts right here holding the case down. They put another 2 bolts holding the case down inside, meaning I have to take all of this off. That doesn't even make sense. But okay, Yamaha, well played. I'm going to bed. I've got a mess that I got to clean up. This is going to create a whole nother mess. And yeah. So that's where we're at. That's what I found out. I got to remove those 2 bolts from the inside. So all this has to come off. Yay me.